So our project is on R.A. Fisher. His name was Ronald. He was born in 1890 in London, England, to a wealthy family. His dad had a successful antique shop and ran an antique auction that was very successful. He went to a very nice private school, got his education there. When he was 14, his mom died, and then when he was 15, his dad's business went under, so they had to move out of a mansion in one of the wealthier areas of England to one of the poorest areas of England. But he did get to keep going to his private school because his grades were so good, he was so smart that he got scholarships. When he was 19, he got admitted into Cambridge University. He studied mathematics and in 3 years graduated with first-class honors. And after he graduated, he went back for another year to study high-level physics, and it was on error theory, I believe, which got him interested in statistics. And while he was in Cambridge, he got really interested in eugenics and started a eugenics society. And at the time, eugenics was a very popular topic and wasn't kind of weird like it is today. So he was very involved in that, head of the society, and he actually met Charles Darwin's son when he came to lecture for them at one point, and they were lifelong friends after that.
So Robert Fisher enjoyed smoking tobacco out of his pipe. He enjoyed it so much that when the British Medical Journal decided to publish an article stating that smoking led to lung cancer, he felt the need to defend his habit and write a heavily worded letter to the journal. He believed that the stats behind the assumption was not solid and that it was only a mere tactic to introduce fear into the smoking community. His assumption was that probability of A did not affect the probability of B. Little did Mr. Fisher know that in his future, his death would be caused by colon cancer, which is often connected to smoking.
So R.A. Fisher was also known as a famous biostatistician. He made major contributions to genetics and evolutionary biology with things like the sexy son hypothesis and a couple of different theories with sexual selection. Also kind of one of the founders of population genetics. But let's focus a little bit more on his statistics influence here. You can kind of talk about the analysis of variance, which is also called ANOVA. He developed a type of analysis while he was working for Rothamsted Research for about 15 years. He was analyzing some crop experiments there to kind of better understand a more efficient way, one, of growing the crops and then distributing them, things like that. One of the great things about the analysis of variance on an elementary statistics level is we can kind of see it as an analysis of means, where you infer means that are made by analyzing a variance. So it's kind of something that we've already done before, but it's used with two or more groups. So when you're thinking about crops, you've got a ton of different observable variables with different types of crops. And if you kind of relate it back to Mendelian genetics, which for non-biology majors is basically crossbreeding, you can get a whole different type of plant, a stronger plant, a weaker plant. So he did that for several years with an enormous amount of data that was collected at that research center. So it really gives us an insight to how he was able to connect statistics and biology together.
Fisher, while he was growing up, even up to like his old age, he had really bad vision. I don't know if you could tell by the glasses he wears and stuff like that. But this actually didn't stop him from doing like enormous amounts of contributions into like stats, eugenicists, and other stuff. So he actually learned how to visualize mathematical problems because of his vision. He couldn't actually do math on paper. So even though he couldn't like write everything down and like actually like do it on paper, imagine that, like just not being able to like actually write down the problem, but you could read it enough and like know it well enough to visualize it and still do it in your head. And this actually helped him a lot because in the near future, he obtained a scholarship to Cambridge.
And that brings us to something else that he really just made a huge contribution to statistics with, something called the maximum likelihood estimation, which fits statistical models to observed data. So the best way to define this would be to assume that each observation that was made is independent. The joint probability of the observation is given by the product of the individual probabilities. There are a lot of online resources to look more into MLE if you're interested. Also ANOVA as well that we talked about before. But that about does it for us. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in class.
So our project is on Ronald Fisher, who went by R.A. Fisher. He was born in 19... Start over.